Okay, hello and welcome to the front page of Photon Ranch. And so here you have a map of the world, and you have the locations of the various telescopes placed in the world. And the bright areas is where the sun's in the sky, so you can't observe when the sun's in the sky. And the dark areas are where the sun is not in the sky. And then in between, you have kind of grayed out areas, which is sunset and sunrise, or neither of the two if you happen to be in Iceland. Sun doesn't quite get down below the ground. So, here we have New Mexico, which is the telescope I'm going to use, ARO1. It's a good telescope to use in Australia because it's now only nearly 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So if I want to go to ARO1, I click on its box and then I go. Pops you into the Observe tab, which can be useful, but let's start off at Home. So home you have a weather map, and this is the current weather, and you can see little wormies going through here. That's the wind and how it's moving around. There's all sorts of other things you can press as well. If you want to have fun with that, that's fun enough by itself. But you can press play and you can see how the weather's going. Basically, if you see this brown dirt stuff, it's fine. A little bit of cloud doesn't matter too much. So all good. Looks like we're pretty clear. On the right hand side, we have a list of things that happen. It's like the telescope timetable. Most of it's not too interesting well, I find it very interesting, but the important simple things are: when does observing begin? At 12 past 1, which is pretty soon, and then it ends somewhere here at 8:40 p.m. So it's a good telescope to use. It's in the afternoon, and there's a chance you'll still be awake by the time it shuts up. Because we're getting towards the summer there, so it's a short night as well. So now we have an idea when it's open, and when you go and so you have an idea when it's open. So it opens at hour 1 o'clock. So if you go over to the calendar, you can see here's the observatory local time, 9 o'clock, which is our 1 o'clock. So you have to do this kind of conversion in your head, which can be a little bit tricky. But if you want to observe tomorrow night, we're not going to observe tonight because people have booked things up. If you want to observe in the future sometime, just go, okay, this is like 1 o'clock, this is 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. Have an idea what your local time is, and then drag in however long you want to observe. If you just want to use it manually, like I'm about to show you, just put in real-time session, 45 minutes, and press submit. Ta-da! And then you've booked your slot, and people won't come in and steal it off you. You can just turn up then and use it. I'm just for example, for demonstrating, I'm just going to use it anyway. I made a little blank spot between this supernova observation and the start to use. So I'll get rid of that too. So if you want to remove your event, you can come in and press remove event. If you put it in the wrong spot, you can drag and drop. So that's all good. So that's your slot that you booked. Cool. So I'm going to remove it because I can use it anytime I want. Basically. So there we go. So that's how you book your slot. And so let's pretend you turned up to use the scope at the start of your slot. So when you turn up to the scope, sorry, you have whatever time you've booked, say 45 minutes. And in that time, you will want to observe some things. So it is outside of this video, it pays to go and have a look, perhaps in the stellarium, to see what's up in the sky and what you might like to observe. Because if you've got 45 minutes, but you spend 15 minutes thinking about what to look at, then you waste a little bit of time. You can waste telescope time, but it's better if you use the time effectively. So if you have an idea of what you want to look at, maybe you do, maybe you don't, You can come to Sky Map here, and it will present you some of the brightest objects in the night sky here, and I'm just going to utilize that to use for an example. So we've got M81, M101, M51, M106. So one of those. So if I go and type in M101 and press the search button, we'll see on over here we have a red cross. So this red cross plus is saying we're pointing here, and here we have a preview of what's in that location at the sky. So there's been sky surveys where they've surveyed the sky in kind of a low resolution to see what's there. So we see there's M101. It is a galaxy. So I'm going to pause this, and then once it's ready to observe, I'll show you what we do next. Okay, so now it's magically 10 minutes into the future, and it's finished focusing, which is what you'll see here. If you're the first one to use it for the night, you'll see these kind of... I'll show you this section in a second, but you'll see these images with dots and graphs. And this is actually it focusing itself. It's trying to find the minimum of this kind of curve here, which is where the stars are smallest in the image. So that's why you can see a bit of the image and a graph. So if you see this, then you know your telescope is focused. It should always be focused. You should never have to press any buttons to focus anything. You just go forth into the universe and observe, which is where we were over here. So we have M101 here, and it's in our window here. Wherever we put these crosshairs here, we'll go and observe. And we'll go, use the mouse wheel to wheel in and out. It's like, oh, what is that thing? That's actually more interesting than M101 to me. But anyway, let's go to M101. So let's, I don't know, put it there. Now you'll want to, once you've figured out where you want to point it, you want to press slew and center. One of the features of Photon Ranch is down here underneath is a little ticker tape parade, I don't know what you want to call it, little log of what's going on. So slewing the telescope to unspecified. Slewing just means moving the telescope. So you'll see the green crosshair move, sometimes jerkily, sometimes smoothly. And it'll say down here it's complete before a crosshair gets there. That's just a feature at the moment. And once it gets there, it will take an exposure by itself. It won't show you. It'll take an exposure just to figure out where it's pointing. And that's what the center bit is. It takes a shot and goes, where am I pointing? And then moves over a little bit. So if we look down here, we'll see starting 12-second exposure. So if you get your stopwatch out and wait 12 seconds, you'll find it'll say exposure complete. So that doesn't take too long. And then once it's done that, there's a little bit of thinking time. The computer has to sort of sort out where it's pointing, and then it'll shift itself over. And when it does that, it says recentering telescope slightly. That was very good timing. I didn't do that, time it that way on purpose, but it turned up just at the right time. Once it says recentering telescope slightly, then you're ready to go. So if we go observe, so we've moved the telescope, we'll go observe. If we go to make sure you're in controls here, then we'll go to camera. This is how we take shots with the camera. And you only have to think about maybe 4 things at the moment. This button takes the image, expose. Object, give it a name. M1 for me. Try to avoid spaces, but put whatever you like in there. Then you have how long do I want to expose it for in seconds. So I'm going to say 30. If I usually take longer exposure to get a prettier picture, but I just want to see where we're pointing. So 30 is good for that. How many? Just one. And a filter. So a filter is what color do you want to look in. The default filter is usually a big, broad white filter that lets a lot of light in. So we'll just start off by doing that. And if I press expose, it should down the bottom tell you it's begun. Then it has, so yep, change the filter to PL. It's probably adjusting the focus a little bit behind the scenes. Focus movement complete, yes. And then it will take a shot. Eventually. There we go. Starting that. So when you press the button, it's not like a phone where you click it and then it's just going to take a shot. Once you tell it to do it, behind the scenes the telescope is actually kind of making sure it's in focus and changing the filter and doing a few different things and making sure everything's ready to go before the exposure starts. So at the moment there's a 30-second exposure happening, but it should be over pretty soon because 30 seconds is not that long a time, which is why it's a good time to pick. Exposure complete. Once it comes out of the camera, then it has to be made into a JPEG and stuff, and it gets sent up to your user interface that you see here. So it should arrive a little bit after the exposure is done. It's taking a little longer than usual, but it will get there. There it is. So here's 30 seconds M101. And that's basically how you get your shots. If you want to get a color image, and you're on a monochrome camera like this, then you want to take a blue, and then press expose, then take a green. So PB is blue, PG is green, PR is red for color imaging. For other uses, you probably have had some instruction on what filters to use. But that's basically how you do it. If you jump around the sky taking 30-second or 60-second or 90-second exposures of things, you'll probably get a nice shot like this most of the time. So that's the real basics about how to get a shot with PhotonWrench.